Yesod, the foundation.
The sphere of witchcraft, connection with the physical without being trapped in the physical, the astral world, that which is beyond time space, but just beyond it, like the surface of a lake is beyond the depth of the lake.
It is that which where the magic happens, what leads down to Malchut. The vision attributed is the vision of the machinery of the universe. It's all about mastering the energy. It is the way things turn out. It is responsible for the way things turn out. So there's a great deal of coincidence or chance involved with Yesod. The whole tree prepares, like God's work, whatever, prepares, unfolds, expands, and until when it comes to Hod, there's this breach. It's kind of like in Hod, kind of it. I already said that the perfection of the thing that's attained in Netzach shatters, and then Hod is kind of a rainbow, diamond rainbow.
A rain of diamonds, in a sense.
Diamond rainbow rains down on the lake that is Yesod, almost like lightning rains down on the primordial soup of earth before life, and so then you get these time-based organisms. We must note here that a human being, is a being in time. It's not an object. We are electricity. We are electrochemical processes. So a life is like a four-dimensional object. And this kind of four-dimensionality, that this being in time, which is extremely vulnerable and sensitive, this is the sphere of the dominion of Yesod, and it's related to the moon, obviously, for the moon causes the tides in which this creation takes place, in which like it shuffles the seas essentially, so that stuff can, become. So to be conscious of Yesod is to be conscious of a process that is largely unconscious. So it's a balancing act. You cannot be completely conscious of the whole thing, because then you ruin it. Like you cannot observe these subatomical particles without changing them, without collapsing them, or you cannot observe these waves without collapsing them into particles. The same is with any kind of Qigong trance or any kind of proper dance. You have to give the attention, but it needs to be kind of a broad, overarching attention, and it shouldn't be a scrutinizing attention. The attention is more like the voltage that you're offering to this situation of your hara, your hips, your vital centers, your gut, which then assumes its own intelligence, or you activate the intelligence of that moon sphere, and then you can do things like actually dance instead of. The point is that this is a point of consciousness, but not penetrating consciousness. On the contrary, in fact, it's you need to preserve some. It's a preserving consciousness, and in this preserve, the wild can live and act and vitalize. So because it is such an unobserved or unintentional place, a place where direct intentions don't apply, it is just the place where things fall into their place. So it's also the place of evolution and of contests. It is the place where it's like an arena. Also, it's where everything which could theoretically be is narrowed down to everything that can practically be, and then only then can it pass through the path of Saturn to Malchut to actually be. The God name belonging to Yesod is Shaddai El Chai, the Almighty Living God. It speaks to the same thing. It's that which actually exists, that form of God which actually is we can perceive it and we have to respond to it, and or in the case where we are it, we draw nature to ourselves, and we become master of humans and of animals. Someone who attains this mastery of Yesod, of Shaddai El Chai, is a magician, but in the sense not of sitting there and conjuring spells, but of, by the force of his consciousness, just influencing things around him or her. It's involuntary influence. It's like the fact of the power is not involuntary, because it takes this specialized will to hold this sphere of power in place. But what happens, what this power causes, that is not intended by the person who holds this sphere. That's just basically what you're doing is causing a selecting process around you, like causing competition, like energizing the situation around you, and thus causing interactions in which selections and choices are being made. So obviously this lake, this primordial lake, is the extremely sacred place, because the magic happens there, and so you want to, keep that lake for the most lofty magic. So Diana, the goddess who guards Yesod, is very fierce. She won't, tolerate impurities or hypocrisies, or she will just immediately slaughter the trespassers and perpetrators, because this is a place of supreme value. Whatever is allowed into Yesod to take shape is chosen. So in order to from the top down attain Yesod, or actually also from just the master Yesod, you need to apply both these qualities. This you need to be able to preserve, like Chesed does, its own sphere. Yesod is in a sense the Chesedic sphere brought to life. And in order to do this, you need Gevuric qualities. You need to kick out everything that's unworthy. So Yesod is the strong man, both in what he holds and contains, and what he wards off and exterminates. You cannot have, because Yesod is such a fragile state, or such a subtle state, extraordinarily subtle state, you cannot have crude influences or crude alien influences in there. So this is also why it's so extremely dangerous for everyone to start walking the path, because you're instantly, if you go from that, everybody comes from down, from Malchut. If you're in Yesod, suddenly all these subtle influences, all these influences can come and play their part without you even being aware of it. This is also what happened to me in the first years first decade, I suppose, of my spiritual work. I was just lambasted and overwhelmed, even the first two decades. Only recently that I started to really make a stand and ward off these influences and realize, okay, there's actually, destructive work I need to be doing in order to preserve Yesod. I can't just sort of sit there and tolerate everything and expect the universe to take care of me if I just open myself up to it. That is not what Yesod is. It is a realm you need to protect. And then once you've protected it, or actually, you're always in the process of protecting it, but it's important to know what the threats are, to ward off those threats, to forbid them from entering, and then you can have this tender sphere where where there's motion and spontaneous motion. Although but on the other hand, it's of course true that also the sphere of the voltage, the dance that the voltage allows for in Yesod, also gives the power to ward off adversarial. So it's a place of habitation. Yesod, I would say, is the place where life streams into. This is also why it's so coveted. And the virtue of Yesod is independence, which just means the attainment of one's own sphere, and being able to let one's own laws dictate one's own behavior. All kinds of arts associated with Yesod or belong to Yesod, and astral travel is one of them. It follows the same law, has the same requirements as this dance that I described. That there needs to be a full attention, but it can't be a penetrating attention. It needs to be a feeding attention. You need to keep the voltage of your attention present, and then let the stuff that happens. But then, of course, in astral travel, you also are a subject, a conscious subject, doing stuff, like picking up stuff and reading your environment and making choices in that environment. But in general, I had the sense that Yesod, that the astral world, it's like when you walk through a doorway from one room to the other, but then the moment you pass through that doorway, you enter from one to the other, that's perpetuated. So you're constantly in this doorway while you're walking. Because the potency of both where you come from and where you're going doesn't collapse into one form. You keep it as potencies, and also you keep walking into it. So it's paradoxical to talk about. And what you'll find, whatever is really definitive then in what you'll find, is something that will manifest in Malchut. Like you can dwell in astral realm and do all sorts of things and see all kinds of things, but then sometimes you're confronted with an object. Like once I found a wallet with an identity card in it, and indeed that was very like definitive. Like there were all sorts of things around me, but then there's this very sharp object that I take, and it has a text, it has a name and an address on it. Well, for example, this address turned out to be such and such street 93, and I didn't know that street. 93 is very interesting, obviously. And then 10 years later, my sister moved into that street at number 39. So that's an example of what weird things that happen in the potency of the astral world. Certain things just apparently have already clicked into place or something, or I don't know. I'm not gonna. Obviously, the case with quantum physics is with the entanglement on very long distances and superposition, is that time isn't really there. Time is Saturn. The path from Yesod to Malchut is also Saturn, the world, and this is where time comes into being. Only at the very last instance, the possibility of time belongs to Bina, but the actual manifestation of a specific time-space realm is in Yesod. The whole dynamic of differentiation and of process and of growth, which belongs to this relationship of sun, moon, and earth. You need all these many factors, and you need this very subtle state in order to cause an actual specific time-space situation where consciousness can dwell in time. In a very real sense, Yesod could be said the magical circle you draw in which you perform your magic, and you ward off everything you don't want outside of the circle. So yes, so it's obviously also a place of divination, of divining, and smelling out possible futures. And interestingly, this is related to the tools that Kabbalah gives for Yesod, which is the sandals and the perfumes. Perfumes, obviously, activating this sense of expectation, but the sandals also activate the instincts of the one, But also the sandals I see as sort of Pegasus shoes in a sense, but also in the sense of walking on water. Like they're tools to walk on a depth without disturbing the depth. So you're keeping on the surface, and you're not disturbing the depth. It's like Jesus walking on water, I suppose, has to do with that. So the sandals are for walking that realm without disturbing it and thus collapsing it, and the perfumes are basically just for enhancing, suggesting that realm, giving more voltage to that realm. The archangel associated with Yesod is Gabriel, the strength of God. So this whole mechanism of the moon straddling the earth, moving it, shaking it, and holding it in this permanent motion. This can be seen as the work of Gabriel. But in general, just Yesod is kind of like the balance point of the tree, in a sense, where it rests on itself, where it endures itself, where it is all these massive, powerful consequences, or of all these powerful actions that come from all these Sefirot, they finally amount in Yesod to this sensitivity. So in Yesod, you are completely aware of all the consequences of the might of all the cosmic creative forces, and you're like suffering them, like undergoing them, but not in a way of crumbling under them, but while being aware of them, carrying them and directing them gently. It very much is Chesed. Yesod very much is Chesed. El is the first like specific God below the abyss, so it was a God of a specific realm. And Yesod is the almighty living God of that realm. So it's like the heart of not the heart, it's just the foundation of the realm. It's the foundation of ultimately what becomes the kingdom, and so the foundation here lies above its result. The foundation, in a sense, like quantum physics, like the quantum world, which is very subtle and vulnerable in this sense, can be disturbed in specific locations, is the but it's also insusceptible to time, like the world. So the quantum world is the foundation of the atomic world. So it's both more subtle and more fragile, but also more impervious and more or less. It's just not susceptible to death. It's not in the same way susceptible to time as the atomic world is.